following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. New York Met Baseball, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, and I have the two hosts are here, Marty Rose and Robert Cole. Hello, Marty. Hello, Robert. Marty.
Hi, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Yeah, how you doing? We're talking a little off air. I listened to the Mets, a Miami affiliate, but nevertheless a Met game on the radio today, and I was impressed by two things. One of them was Mats, and I want you guys to elaborate on how much he means to the 2019 New York Mets chances. Robert Cole.
He's a big piece. As I've said, you have those five starters, and if they're all pitching the way they're supposed to be pitching, I can't see any way of them ever going on a long losing streak as long as they stay healthy. And, he's a big piece of that. The Marlins announcers who were doing the game today, and I know Marty didn't like them, but
no, I didn't. That was my comment. I thought
was
they
that your
were
comment? Okay.
Yeah.
That actually isn't the Marlins' actual announcers. The actual announcers are going to be back tomorrow. That was J.P. Arancibia, who just started announcing basically the last couple of years, and like their podcast guy. So that wasn't their announcer.
Oh, okay. All right. They seemed like they had never really worked together much. And
they never have.
Yeah, it sounded like it. It was a baseball game. I enjoyed listening. I enjoyed the Mets. I enjoyed their analyzation of Alonso. People are saying this guy's a beast. Let's not get off the subject. We have plenty of time. Let's complete Mats. He's been, at best, erratic for them over the past 2 or 3 years. But the stuff he has is amazing. And you suppose that he could be maturing into somebody who's a good, solid number 4 guy. Remember how deep they are with Wheeler and Syndergaard and DeGrom. Put him as a number 4 starter. Wow, you really have something.
Yeah, and Wheeler came on into his own last year. Wheeler, we were second guessing, weren't sure what we were going to get out of him, and all of a sudden he turned it up a notch, and you can only hope that Wheeler will do the same. I was impressed. Like you were, with 5 strong innings. They brought him out for the 6th just to get him up that 6th time, and looked very good. Got a couple of hits off him. Runner lead off double, and he got out of it. Very impressed with what he was today.
But he's been erratic all spring, though.
Yes, he has. His last outing. See, but the other thing too, Marty, is the way the wind has been blowing. When he pitched last week, you or I probably could hit a ball out, off of him.
I remember that, yeah.
So hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
true.
not an excuse. The other pitcher was pitching the same way. But, it's just one of those things. You have to hope, once they get out of that Florida craziness with the winds and stuff, that he can pitch like he did today.
Yeah. True. Then we'll segue to Alonso and his fight for first base and Dominic Smith and what the situation is with starting his contract going. Marty, would you elaborate on this and tell me what you think is going to happen? We have another week of spring training, and he's done nothing. He wants to stay up. He's trying to force the issue. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, since they still have injuries, don't see why they may not keep both guys up. Both first basemen, possibly. Why not? That lineup that they put out there today was somebody was saying this could be the opening day lineup, and if you looked at it, finally they had left, right, all the way down, instead of those four left-handers they had at the top earlier in the spring. So they got Alonso hitting up in the 2-hole, which nowadays they have one of your best hitters hitting in the 2-hole. The last year or so, with all these changes that have been made. There's a chance that they could keep both. I don't see why not.
Okay, hate to get off the topic yet again, but you mentioned the left-right combo that they have going.
They had it all the way top to bottom. Yeah.
Right. But is that as necessary as it was? Because I'm assuming that the rule change of a pitcher coming in to pitch to 3 guys minimum has that taken effect, or
No,
that will take effect?
Next year, I believe.
Next year.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I would have said that it really doesn't matter as much if you got if a lefty can only come in to pitch to one batter, as an example. But that doesn't go into effect till next year. I'll ask you both. What do you think of that impending rule change? Robert?
Well, I'm a old-fashioned guy for the most part, so right now I don't like it. But I also didn't like, when they did the intentional walk rule, without throwing the pitches. I was totally against that, too. And now it's like, it just happens and you live with it. But you're still going to need to do the right, left thing, Ralph, because you don't want to have, say, 3 lefties coming up so that the manager on the other team can bring in a lefty to face those 3 lefties, or, 3 righties in a row, and he can bring a righty and face 3 righties.
I didn't say it didn't matter. It just didn't matter as much as it's going to matter next year.
I think it's, in my mind, it's still going to be an important thing. The way you're going to match up.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Ralph. What happens if you bring a guy in and he's got nothing? He can't find the plate. He walks the first guy on 4 pitches. And what happened? The whole game could blow up because you can't take the guy out. They're going to start faking injuries? I mean, I don't understand how they could possibly put this into effect. I just don't get it.
And there's one other thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there is a strategy that's been used where you put a pitcher in right field. You put 2 pitchers in the game. Put one in right field and one pitching. And can't do that anymore, I'm sure. A pitcher couldn't go to another position and then come back and pitch.
Well, he still can, but he's still going to have to face 3 batters.
Each time he comes back to pitching?
Well, now that's an interesting question, and that's a good question. I'm going to try to find that out.
Okay. Well, maybe they haven't even worked that part of it out yet. But, yeah, that's something to think about. All right, and along with all of this, they are experimenting with something that could finally, we'd have to say, should we follow this anymore? Should we follow this game anymore? They're experimenting in that Atlantic League that we talked about with the Long Island Ducks play, an independent league, with in extra innings, they're going to put a runner on second base, and they've been doing this in the minors in extra innings for a while now. The more they experiment with it, the closer it comes to becoming a reality. And they'll start out extra innings with the guy on second base. Now you say, well, what credit does the guy get for being on base? How do you score that? What if he scores a run? Do you count that on his statistics? That he scored a run? Does that go into the all-time run-scoring thing? What about the pitcher's ERA? If the runner scores, he never put the guy on. He was put on automatically. So should that count against the pitcher's ERA?
They'll have to come up with a team ERA, Ralph.
Not that we can use the record book to compare players to past generations anymore, and on some respects we really couldn't, because there was the dead ball era, there was the pre-African American era, there was this, that, and the other thing, there was the mound change, but this makes it totally crazy, and it makes it's blasphemous.
Yeah, it is terrible. And I don't care for them moving the pitcher's mound back either.
Oh, that's totally.
Guys have been throwing the same distance for their whole life.
Since they were 7 years old.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? They're going to hurt their arms. There's going to be a million walks. It makes absolutely no sense. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard, honestly.
And
they're also
I
going to
got to retort Alan Blumpkin on this network, who's resident genius, really, encyclopedic memory, was talking about the last time in the 1800s they moved back the mound. There were pitchers that didn't like it initially, but who prospered. There was a guy, I remember he mentioned Kid Nichols, who I play in simulation games, like dice baseball games. He was terrific, and he prospered by that. So Alan doesn't seem to think it's that much of a big deal, but it is. How the hell can one train for all those years to be a pitcher when your curveball is going to break, this, that, the other thing? That's horrible. They're making it into some sort of just a
sideshow.
A sideshow. That's the dog and monkey.
Dog and pony show.
Yep. Yes. To say nothing of the impending DH in our National League.
Also, the other thing they're experimenting with now, too, is going to be a robot umpire calling balls and strikes.
In that league, exactly. They'll have an umpire back there. For what reason, I don't know. Maybe because if catches interference, this, that, and the other thing.
So if there's
but he's going to get a buzz in the ear, and it's going to say strike a ball.
Right.
All done electronically.
And as somebody who has umpired high school and college for over 25 years, I think it's totally ridiculous. And nobody's going to wind up liking it. The ball players may say, oh, great, we're finally going to get a consistent strike zone. But it's going to be a mechanical strike zone, and I don't know how they're going to adjust it for the different heights of the different players. I mean, it's just baffles me.
Yeah, there has to be a way of doing that. And as soon as that goes on for a while, the hitters are going to know the strike zone so well. I mean, they're not going to. You probably never see a guy call down on strikes anymore because, it's 2 inches off the plate and the umpire called it a strike. That's not going to happen anymore. So I think that'll add more offense as the players get a more representative strike zone.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to do, Marty. I think that's exactly what they want to do.
Well,
pitchers have become so dominant again as they were back in, the 70s. and then they changed the height of the mound and
right.
things.
I think it was
well,
68.
Has to improve the offense.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they're trying to do. And
it makes sense to me.
I may have to become a soccer fan.
Yeah, and you could be a soccer official and wear short pants and run around and make sure the kids don't smack into each other with the ball. That would be fun. Yes, following soccer. That one. Tell me about your umpiring. That's new to me, Robert. Tell me about how that got started. Did you want to be an umpire for a long time? Because you were into your middle age. You say 25 years. It's like a second career for you, wasn't it?
Yes, and it was something that I did want to do, but different jobs and not having the hours and stuff like that. And then I started working for the school system, and which allowed me to have the time to do it. I was off weekends, able to work at nights, started doing Little League. Then I started doing high school and college. Was fortunate enough to do a couple of independent league games and also did some fill-in spring training games when the minor league umpires needed a day off. So it was a lot of fun. Of course,
wow.
I had knees now, but enjoyed it, enjoyed it a lot.
Whoa, I had no idea. What was the most fun of being an umpire, and what was the thing that you didn't like about it?
There weren't too many things I didn't like about it other than working the lower levels, the youth leagues. The parents were just horrible, especially those teams that they paid to have their kids play on, the travel ball teams at very young ages. A kid would strike out, mom and dad would start yelling at him, the poor kid would start crying. I stopped doing those youth games because I just couldn't handle the parents anymore. But the higher the level of baseball, the easier it is to umpire. And, I was able to do some spring training games when Rocco Baldelli played. The Bell brothers were, rehabbing. I did some of them. I did Lastings Millage when he was in high school. Did a number of ball players that, did make the majors. No tremendously big stars, but just a lot of fun. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Wish I could still be doing it.
Yeah, that would have been something to consider. You're a big guy. A little skinny guy like me couldn't be an umpire for one reason or another. They always chose the big guys. And did you go to umpire school at all?
Yes, I went to an umpire school. The thing is, when you start at an older age like myself, if you're not in AAA by the time you are 30, you don't have a chance of going any higher. And there's so much nepotism in the umpiring industry in the major leagues. You look at the different names, and, these names go back to the 50s, grandfathers and fathers, and now the sons. The Wendell stats, for instance, come to mind, and some others. And it's just a lot of nepotism, very difficult to get to the major league level, but there's so much other levels of baseball that you can do, and it's very fulfilling.
Good. And most of all, it sounds like it was fun. You're around grass, dirt, kids playing, and it's baseball.
And like I said, you do some Little League, and then it's very fulfilling to see those same kids that you did Little League, 10, 15, 20 years before. Now they're in high school and college, you're still doing them. It's very, very, very fulfilling.
Nice. Now, you did this up in Jersey.
Well, I started in New York, but I've been down here now for a long time, and most of it was done down here in Florida.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a great way to go. Had no idea you did that. Very interesting. And you got an inside look at the game that you didn't have before.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What about, I will ask you as an umpire, what about these catchers that frame the ball? I spoke with Al Clark, former umpire, once, and he said it's not important where the catcher catches it. It's where the ball crosses the plate. Now, we know this, but is it almost an automatic that you pay attention to where the catcher catches the ball? Is that the most difficult part of umpiring, to discern where the ball goes over the plate?
Yes, and okay, what Al Clark is saying is the rule book way of doing it. But if you watch, okay, a lot of balls will clip the plate at the front part of the plate, get wound up getting caught way outside, and it's very difficult to call that a strike because everybody in the world will be yelling and screaming at you. The framing, okay, is something that starts in Little League, and I've never liked it, and I always tell the catchers that are working in front of me, okay, if you think it's a strike, you hold it there, okay? When you jerk the ball, and why the Major League umpires are letting them do this now big time, I don't know. But when they pull the ball in, that's telling you that it wasn't a strike. They didn't think it was a strike, okay? If they thought it was a strike, they'd hold it there, okay? And you'd say, oh, yeah, that's right there on the corner. I can call it a strike. But when they pull it into the strike zone, and that's one of the biggest problems right now, is Major League umpires doing that. You go to a minor league game, okay, they've just come out of school, okay, they're doing it the right way. You never see them calling those balls a strike that the catcher pulls in.
Good point. Nice. That was a good insight. Let's talk about the Mets and where they are now with a week to go in spring training, and where we would have wanted them to be. It's pretty close, isn't it, Marty? They're in good shape.
Yeah, I think judging by that lineup they put out there today, the only guy that you may not have figured is J.D. Davis because of the injury situation at third base.
Right.
And he is hitting .294. That lineup that was out there today, Conforto, who has been showing a lot of power this spring, had the lowest batting average of the 8 guys out there today, and that was .275. So, compared to what we have been used to seeing from the Mets hitting-wise the last couple of years, this is a very good sign, I'm thinking. Look at the catcher. This guy could just get out of bed and get a base hit. Hitting 2 for 3 today, 355. Same thing with Cano. The guy's unbelievable, 442. So this is very good. In my opinion, I think the only thing that was lacking the last couple of years was offense, and it seems like it may be there. So that's very exciting. As long as the pitching.
I like the fact that they're playing Conforto, that they plan on playing Conforto exclusively in right this year.
Right. Yeah. That's got to help. No question.
Oh, yeah.
That can't help but be good for his head. And if, truth be known, he was adequate at all 3 positions. I give him credit. Even center field, he played a better center field than we thought. This year they've got depth. Anything happens to Lagares, they've got Buxton. They're looking good. And we must remember that Cespedes is down the road. He could be our late addition, just by... Don't mention it.
Don't mention the C word, okay? When it comes out, that'll be a big surprise for us, okay?
All right, but that's in the offing. Even if he never comes back, they're still a pretty solid team. McNeil, terrific addition. Lowry's going to... You haven't seen Lowry yet. Lowry is an RBI machine, and he has versatility. He can play at second. He can play at third. He could even play a little shortstop if need be. You really wouldn't want that. Echeverri's there. That adds to the depth. You got, as you guys say, Wilson catching. Well, I'm very excited.
Now the one thing we have to bear in mind now, too, is a lot of these guys that they signed to minor league contracts have what they call an acceleration clause in the contract. And that kicked in today for Mesoraco and Hechavarria. And what that means is any other team can now offer them a contract as long as they're put on the major league roster. The Mets get the right of first refusal. But if they don't immediately put that player on the 25-man roster, they lose them. So the next, week or so, we're liable to see a lot of movement, and the Mets' hands are going to be forced a little bit. They got to make the decision on Mesoraco. They have to make the decision on Hechavarria, and so you still have to wait to see as far as just how much depth they're really going to have.
Yeah, and that's juggling rosters. With that in mind, I think that probably reduces the chances of Alonso making the team right out of spring training.
Right now, they're saying that both Smith and Alonso are going to make the team. Callaway said today he's only going to carry 7 bullpen pitchers. As opposed to 8, which means one more spot will be available for a player.
Okay.
That's good.
And they've got the shuttle going already. They know what they're going to do right from Syracuse, and what an advantage it is to have your AAA club 150 miles away or whatever it is, as opposed to across country.
Yeah, they already have all the Amtrak tickets bought.
Right. Well, let me tell you, if they don't get a sleeper car, if you go on Amtrak and you have to stay up all night in those seats, and believe me, I'm one who doesn't fly and who took Amtrak going cross country, it's impossible to sleep in those seats. Get a sleeper car. That's my advice. To be serious for a second, that's going to help them quite a bit in terms of pitchers available, getting guys there in record time. That'll be nice. And Syracuse is planning good stuff. They bought the franchise, the Mets did, and they're changing the name to Chiefs, or from Chiefs to the Mets. They've pissed off enough people to get some controversy, and they're having a Chiefs night to honor the franchise. It's all become a business. Minor league ball is a business anymore, as much as it is for development. That's the way it goes. But you guys are still confident. Am I right? To take a little poll. I know I am.
Yes, I am. No question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I for sure am.
Good.
I like what I'm seeing so far.
Now, Las Vegas is still saying 86. What do you guys think?
Would you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Over
Las
under?
Vegas is putting the over-under at 86.
The over-under 86. That given the toughness of the division, we have to remember Washington is still tough. Philadelphia gets Harper. The Braves are always something else. I would say that's say because of the pitching and catching, and now the relief pitching. We didn't even talk about Diaz and Familia in a more comfortable role. I'd say 88. I'd take it right there, and I'd rather see it be 88 than 86. Marty?
Definitely, yeah. I'd rather see that too, but like you said, due to the situation in the division with the other teams, 19 games each. I think 86 is pretty good. I think they'd have, considering what they were last year, I think they'd have trouble being higher than 86. I'd go with that.
Okay. Robert, pick a number, any number.
Yeah, I'm thinking more in the lines of 87, 88. In my back of my mind, I'm thinking more like 90. But if they do 90, then they'll be in the postseason. Even 86, probably they have a shot at the postseason. Las Vegas is usually pretty good, so I'll go 87.
Okay. If we took the numbers out of it and we just said they're good, solid contenders.
Yes.
We're not off on that, are we?
No.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Good. Well, that's the best all three of us have felt about this team for a long time. Well, maybe since they won 11 in a row or something last year to open the season, we were feeling our oats a bit, but we forgot we're Met fans.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't ever forget that.
That's a factor. It always is. But this is going to be a good year. We're going to honor and remember the 1969 team and regret how fast it's all gone by, if we think about it.
They're going to rename. They're going to rename 126th Street for Tom Seaver.
Right.
By the stadium. Yeah. They
nice.
have to get permission. They have to get permission from the city first, but I'm sure that won't be a problem.
If you think about it, we grew up on 91st Street,
right?
126th Street. We're talking 2 miles. We grew up 2 miles from all of this.
Yeah, we rode our bikes down that way lots of times.
Yeah. Up Roosevelt Avenue on the wrong side of the street. Remember that, Mert?
Absolutely.
Facing traffic, little kids, 10 years old, right through the heart of Corona from Jackson Heights to Flushing.
Yeah, we've done that.
Ballsy little bastards, I'll say that. But we made it. All right, Mert. All right, Robert. This was terrific. Let's go Mets. Thank you for listening, everyone. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho. The hosts are Marty Rose and Robert Cole. Adios. Thanks.
Hello.
Jerry Feitelberg, you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco and across the moat from Oakland. It is spring training, and I am the happiest little podcaster in California. Not only is it spring training, but for some teams, it's opening day. The A's are no exception, and you follow the A's. Tell me about the trip to Oakland, trip to Japan.
The trip to Japan for the players and for the coaches and for the support staff was wonderful. The 2 games that they played was a disaster. They lost both games to start the season. And there are very, very serious questions today. People are asking, what are they going to do about the starting rotation? They got Fires got beat up yesterday. Estrada gave up a couple home runs today. They were losing 4-2. They rallied to tie it up 4-4, and then they lost it in the 12th inning when they couldn't complete a double play with the bases loaded, one out. The runs scored, and they lost 5-4. So here we are. They've had opportunities to sign some starting pitching. From what I understand, they're going after Edward Jackson again. Hopefully they will sign him because he performed well for them last year. And they need help. They really need help.
I was wondering why they hadn't signed him for a while now. And the big mistake, I think I talked to you about this a while ago. I know I talked to the Yankee guy, Jack DeGraw, who they did sign with, and that's Gio Gonzalez. He would have been.
Yeah, and they signed a minor league contract,
right?
Which is not expensive.
Well, they're just waiting for roster space. They'll bring him up, but the point is, Jackson and Gonzalez were about as reliable two starters who are still out there, and they whiffed on one. Maybe they'll get to sign Edwin Jackson, who was a miracle man for them last year. But the big story of their road trip was Ishihiro. You pronounce it.
Ichiro Suzuki.
He's a rookie, right? I haven't had much of a time to learn to pronounce his name. It's only been about 18 years. What a ball player. And what circumstances for retirement. Hats off to Seattle for leaving him on the roster for the 2 games that they played back in Japan. And I can't say enough about this guy. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Without a shadow. He may be the second unanimous player to go in the Hall of Fame. Can you imagine? He came here. He started when he was 18 years old, and he had an 18-year career here, and he played for, I think, 8 years in Japan. He's 45 years old, so 27 years he's been a player. And he was in magnificent shape. He used to do stretching by the hours. He had an arm in right field was a cannon. He could hit, he could run, he could throw, and he could hit with power when he wanted to. But he was more, he wanted to put the ball on the bat or the bat on the ball more often than not. And he has, when you take into account his hits that he had in Japan, coupled with the hits that he had in the major leagues, he's the all-time hit leader ever. He has more hits than Pete Rose. Yeah. So, no question about it. And he worked hard. He was diligent. Gave you 100%. Never a problem. He learned to speak a little bit of English. And I think he's going to stay with the Mariners in some executive position in the near future.
Okay. What does opening day mean to you?
It's a new beginning. It's a new beginning. Normally, all the guys, all the teams on opening day are 0-0. And as you say in baseball, even the worst team can have hopes of making the playoffs, starting 0-0. You never know what's going to happen. The season, it's a long season. It's a 6-month season. They play baseball every day. Injuries can decimate a team. Teams, for example, right now the Yankees are concerned about their ace Severino, who has a shoulder injury, and that's why they signed Gio as insurance in case Severino doesn't come back. He's going to be out for at least the first month, and we'll see what happens after that. And, of course, the A's got bad news, too, that their prized lefty, Luzardo, guess what? He's got a shoulder problem, and he's not going to be able to pitch until the end of May if he if he doesn't require surgery. Let's hope he doesn't require surgery.
He's an outfielder, right? That's what you're talking
No,
about.
he's their pitcher. He's their lefty pitcher that they were hoping to plug into the rotation.
Oh, okay. What's the center
He was
fielder's
the
name? What's the center fielder's name who came on?
That's Ramon Laureano.
Laureano, not Lucy. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
The A's have had such tough luck with starting pitchers over the last 2 years. It's almost like they were the Mets.
Well, I don't know what their thinking was. They had a bunch of mediocre pitchers. Some of them are down in the minor leagues. Mengden was so-so. And mediocre means not that they're not great, but they're not terrible. They're just in the middle. Mengden is one of them. Andrew Triggs is another one. Paul Blackburn is another one. Chris Bassett is another one. They've got their two guys returning from Tommy John surgery. Jarrell Cotton, who started off good in 2016, was so-so in 2017, and then missed all of last year with Tommy John surgery. And the lefty, A.J. Puck, he was supposed to be an up-and-coming star, and he got sidelined by Tommy John surgery. So, and of course, their best pitcher, Sean Manaea, went out with a shoulder injury, and they don't know when he will be back. Hopefully, he will be back this year, but you got to take it easy with shoulders. So we'll see how that plays out.
Well, things look like they looked at the beginning of last year, and Billy Beane has a way of piecing it together. I don't know, with baling wire, chewing gum, whatever he does, he seems to get the most out of for less, the most buck for the least amount of money, the most bang for your buck.
Most
I guess
bang
that's
for
it.
the buck.
All right, and he does it, and you got to give him credit. I thought last year he had an uphill battle when all those guys got hurt. I think this year he has an uphill battle, but with one disadvantage. They let their catcher get away. And
well, they let LaCroix get away. Then I was looking at Hundley's numbers. Hundley and LaCroix had the same batting average, 241, and Hundley had more home runs. He had a little more pop in his bat. But I think that LaCroix handled the pitchers better and had a better arm than Hundley. But if Hundley can come through for them, they may not be too bad in that department. We'll have to wait and see what happens on that. Josh Begley will get more playing time. I thought Begley was going to be the odd man out because with Chris Herman, Herman hits from the left side, and so that would give him a lefty-righty combination. But it doesn't matter if the catchers are both right-handed.
What's new in this?
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think you're going to get from Huntley what you got for like 14 years. He's a veteran. He's just not as good defensively as you had.
As LaCroix.
Yeah. What about the stadium issue in Oakland? Anything new there?
I'm telling you. We haven't heard anything. The last thing we heard, when I went over to talk to the A's in January, that's 2 months ago, they told me that for the first time, the city, the A's, and the Port of Oakland were in the same room at the same time discussing the situation. Nothing has transpired since that time. The A's haven't purchased the land. They have plans, and maybe they're doing the work behind the scenes that we don't know about. But in the meantime, they are making changes to the Coliseum. They're going to do a few things this year.
Do they have a deadline? Do they have some sort of deadline for Major League Baseball to get it together?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay,
I know that. I know they'd like to get it. They got to do something. In my mind, I know they want to, And if they can't get it done at Howard Terminal for whatever reason, they got to really have the plans to build a beautiful facility at the current location. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, in my mind, if they were to rebuild the stadium right there. It's got transportation, it's got bars, it's got the freeway exits. People know where it is. It's easy access, easy on and off the freeway. The sad part is the new baseball experience is that you want to have restaurants and shopping around the ballpark. You know, look what transpired in San Francisco when they built the park 20 years ago. We call it New Park, but it's almost 20 years old.
Wow.
And
does time ever go fast? It's crazy.
All the restaurants, but it still looks nice. And you go over there, there's great public transportation. Parking isn't that great, but there is parking there. There's great restaurants within walking distance. You can walk down the Embarcadero. It's not a bad situation. And unfortunately, I don't think they've had a good experience in Oakland. They can't get the investment in there to build what's necessary to make it a ballpark destination. I know that when the Warriors move over to San Francisco next year, they're going to have restaurants. They're going to have businesses. As you know, they're putting in addition to the Chase Center, they're putting in office buildings, restaurants, park and people can walk, have lunch or dinner by the park before the game. And very, very pleasant experience. And I don't know if they're going to do that in Oakland. Where they want to build it is near Jack London Square, but it's in an industrial area where the docks are. You'd have a nice view of the bay, I suppose, in downtown.
Jerry, that would be built up with restaurants, with bars, with sports shops, just like in San Francisco. Within 2 years, that area would be totally refurbished, and city and county officials in Oakland have never been able to put two and two together that what cities need is a ballpark to build around. And they're missing the boat. Yeah. They've already let the Raiders go, and as you say, the Warriors. And I'm just waiting for the day to come when Oakland is going to say, we're out the door, we're going to Vegas, we're going to Charlotte, we're going to San Antonio. I don't know where they're going. Maybe back to Montreal. But there are 4 or 5 cities in this country who are putting in active proposals to teams, and they want the A's. And they want
I'm sure they do.
And if they're not wanted, it's like anything else. If you're not wanted in one place and you're wanted in another place, and you've exhausted negotiations, I have a bad feeling. And the fact that they bought Las Vegas, they bought the rights to Las Vegas by having their AAA minor league team there this year, doesn't bode well in my mind.
No, they'd have to have a domed stadium in Las Vegas because in the summertime it's just too hot, even at night.
Well, is there an existing stadium that is domable, if you will?
I don't know. I don't know, but Las Vegas would be the success of the Golden Knights hockey team has opened eyes for people in around the sports world, but baseball is a little bit different. And we'll see.
Well, they've opened eyes. They were the first expansion hockey team, or any team, to make postseason.
They made the Stanley Cup Finals. Won the whole thing.
I wonder how well they did attendance-wise. If the city jumped on it,
I don't know. I think they did very well, though.
I'm sure they did. Hey, we talked candy store stuff. We live in the candy store of life, baseball. As far as I'm concerned, it gets my mind off politics and the world situation. But not for long when I have a guy like Jerry Feitelberg on who analyzes things for me and puts things into perspective. Are things as bad as I think they are? Can Trump be reelected by these bozos and avoid any prosecution, presidential immunity, this, that, and the other thing? What's the situation? What do you think the closing game will be? Jerry Feitelberg.
I think right now, after what he did this weekend, he had 35 tweets on Sunday, and he's been highly critical of John McCain. I have to say, to rip apart a person that could no longer speak for himself is terrible. McCain, and I didn't agree with McCain's politics, but to me, and for you too, because you served in the military as I did, I had great respect for him as an individual. My lovely Isla was, when she went to Vietnam, went to Hanoi, and saw what he had to go through at the Hanoi Hilton. And he was there in that prison for over 5 years. 5 years. And he took a beating from these people. And for Trump to say he's not a hero, he says he likes people that don't get captured. You know, McCain was flying a plane. He got shot down by missiles, and he was captured. And he survived. He protected his men, or the men. He wouldn't give the men up for whatever.
And he could have, by all rights, come home because his father was an admiral. And he was offered some sort of special deal. He wasn't going to come home without his men, and he spent an extra amount of time there. And it isn't even the point of was he a hero, was he not? The guy is freaking dead. I mean...
Well, he can't respond. And for what did he want? McCain to thank him for the funeral after he died? You know, maybe he wanted the family to thank him, but I mean, the country did the right thing by having that funeral for McCain.
And the McCains did the right thing by not inviting Trump to the funeral, which really set this whole thing off. He was embarrassed by that.
Of course, and he shouldn't have been there for what he said. And the hell with him. Megan, his daughters did it right. People will never love Trump the way the country loves John McCain, and we did. And to see him go into to serve in the Congress, you see his shoulders were all banged up from what he had to put up with in captivity.
Right.
And he served his country. He worked and he served his country in the military. He served it in the Congress, and he deserves all the praise that we can give him, all the respect. That ex-serviceman, we know, you know, when you went through basic training and you served your time in the military, you never knew if there was going to be a crisis in the country, and if something came up, you had to go. I was on active duty during the Bay of Pigs invasion, or the failed Bay of Pigs invasion. We were put on alert. Fortunately, I didn't have to go. And then, of course, during the Vietnam War, things got heated up, and I could have been sent to Vietnam. But I was very fortunate. It didn't happen. And for other people, they weren't so fortunate. They had to go, and they had to serve, and some didn't come back.
Yeah, my uncle had an expression. He said he was still in shock from the last war. He almost got drafted. So,
almost got drafted.
Bum.
But I didn't get deferments. You didn't get deferments. We don't know the truth about Trump's bone spurs. There have been reports that the doctor fabricated the statement.
Of course, he got bought off. There's no question about it. He bragged about it. He told people. I think he told people on tape that that he was trying to get out of it, which is one thing. I can see trying to get out of the war. It was an unjust war. That's not the point. The point is that someone who wasn't trying to get out of it turns out to be a hero, and he was politically against Trump. And it's Trump's responses, his crazy-like responses, and the fact that his chief of staff has a husband who's a political commentator and a conservative lawyer. He can't blame this one on the Democrats. And a former friend of Trump who introduced Kelly Conway, or whatever her name is, to the president in the first place. And he's saying some things that are either slanderous, and if they are, Kelly's not standing up and going, wait a minute, how could he say something like that? She's just saying, I don't think he's crazy, but he's saying the diametrically opposed opinion of saying this guy is unfit, and he must hear stories when she comes home, and he's not getting these opinions out of left field. Is there a possibility that Amendment 25 can be talked about again? Is there...
No, don't even think about it, because it has to come from the cabinet members, and they're not going to do that. I would put that out of your mind. The thing that will happen is if they have sufficient evidence, and I think they have barrels of evidence of his misconduct and misdeeds of high crimes and misdemeanors, stuff that would get him impeached. The special prosecutor must have boatloads of the stuff. And then now the Congress is going to get it. And the Mueller's report is going to be limited to the Russia investigation. It found out other stuff, but for example, we found out that Michael Cohen may have been an unregistered agent of a foreign government. He was receiving money from foreign governments or foreign countries. So that was in 2017, and that just came up. The stuff that's been referred to the Southern District of New York, the Attorney General of New York's looking into the Trump Foundation and their misdeeds. They got so much going on. Now they're looking into Deutsche Bank. How is he getting all this money from Deutsche Bank? And he misstated his net worth. They said he was worth $3 billion. He was worth $788 million. It's a lot of money, but it's not $3 billion. So, and Deutsche Bank was funding a lot of projects for him, and he had a reputation of stiffing a lot of people along the way. So how does this happen? And the evidence, he might get indicted. He might. The problem that you have is that they have when they do the polls of presidential approval, his approval is somewhere between 36 and 40% of the people that they poll. And they know that in the Republicans, 88% approve of what he's doing. And you say, how can they look at this guy and approve what he's doing? And you ask the question, can he get reelected? Yes. And the answer lies with the Electoral College. The blue states like California and the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, New York, Massachusetts, and the swing states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, Florida. They can get the liberal vote. They could probably outvote them instead of by 3 million, maybe 4 or 5 million. But it doesn't matter if those 20 or so red states and they get those electoral votes. He can again win with a minority vote, and that's the way it's structured. It was structured to way back when to protect the slave states. to give them a voice so that the states that oppose slavery wouldn't gang up on them. That's how they got around it. And 3 times in the history of the United States, the minority candidate has won, and 2 of them have been in the last 20 years, in 2000 and 2016. And so it's the so-called Southern strategy to get the electors in so many of the Southern states. You can win an election with less than majority vote.
Jerry, some of the candidates are proposing legislation that would change it to the majority vote rather than the Electoral College. Is there a possibility of that happening in short order before the election, or is that something that's going to have to go through the Senate, and the Senate's not going to want to change things? Because as much as the Republican senators must hate this guy, they must be embarrassed for the country. Not embarrassed enough that they don't do anything about it, or do something about it, and they don't. I will say that if one leans towards voting with their pocketbook in today's day and age, if you're thinking, well, he's getting jobs back, and you forget the fact that he's screwing up this country ecologically to do it, then there's something wrong with people like that. That's very selfish, and I don't want to just label all Republicans as a bunch of scumbags this, a bunch of scumbags that. Well, they're a bunch of scumbags this, all right, but are they a bunch of scumbags that? That's the big question. I don't.
Well, you asked about the Electoral College. Yeah, they can get it through the House, and even if they get it through the Senate, which they may, Trump would veto it right now.
Well, if he vetoed it, can they re-vote? And I guess
they would need a 2/3 vote. They can't get it. The reason that the Republicans are not challenging him is because they know that, and they've seen it happen with Eric Cantor. He was the second highest ranking Republican in the legislature in the House a couple of years ago. He got beat in the primary, and in the primary you have less people voting, and if they get the base worked up, they can get a majority. If only 20 or 25% of the population votes in a primary, you only need 13% of the voters to win. And if you have an energized base, they get out and they will get the guy out of office in the primary with just that small amount of people. And so this is what these senators are afraid of. If they don't go along with Trump, he'll put the word out to his base, which are these right-wing conservatives, wackos, if you ask me, and they will get out and get the vote out and remove the candidate in the primary rather than the general election. And that's what they were afraid of. And that's why they were afraid to take on Trump. And that's why it used to bug the crap out of me to hear guys like Bob Corker and Jeff Flake, Corker of Tennessee, Flake of Arizona. They'd rail against Trump. They'd say they were opposed to what he was doing. And then when push came to shove, guess what they did? They voted with him. Right. They never stood up for him. And it drove me crazy. That happened with Tillis from North Carolina in the last election. Yeah, whatever his name was, the senator from North Carolina, he was opposed to something, and it was on the bill that just got vetoed by Trump. And he was for it, and then the last minute he voted against it because he's up for re-election and he was afraid he'd get primaried.
Yeah.
So,
well, two things come to mind. What if he loses and refuses to relinquish the office? There have been people hinting of that. He's hinted at it. that bad things could happen. He's got
he will be arrested. He will be arrested. The military will not stand. If once he's out of office, he cannot command the military. They will not stand for it. They will go in and arrest him if he doesn't leave.
Okay, can he declare some sort of ongoing emergency that we can't have elections right now because we're at war, we're at peril, and we can't trust the commie press to report it right, and I'm just going to stay in power. And what if he tried something like that? He's hinting at it. Cohen hinted at it. Is it beyond possibility?
Yeah, if he were to do that, I think that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff would order the military to arrest him.
Okay. He's a crazy one, and he scares me.
He scares a lot of people.
You recently read a book by Woodward and Bernstein, one of those two. It was called Fear, if I remember correctly. And
yeah, it was Woodward.
Woodward, and he wrote All the President's Men, and he's responsible for breaking Watergate, he and his partner, what have you. They wrote a book that came out at a time when about a week later they were overshadowed by some crisis, and it did well for a while, but people stopped talking about it, and it was an inside look at what's going on in the administration. What one fact stands out in your mind as something that surprised you when you read it and shocked you of just how screwed up things were? What's one of the...
I don't know if I was shocked or surprised. The thing that he's done, one of the things that sticks in my mind that Trump's done, is when he had this cabinet meeting and all the guys went around, all the people in the room went around praising the president, what a wonderful job he was doing, and Trump was basking in all his glory. He's in. But for the truth of the matter is that I think that Trump is, people are saying when he came into office he was a con man, he stiffed a lot of people, he was a narcissist, he has no empathy for people, and he's shown that to be true. He is a con man, he's a flim-flam man, and he praises all the people that lavish praise on him, and he demeans and denigrates those that are opposed to him.
And he denigrates our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, all women. He's a pure misogynist.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you brought up they got a case in New York that's going to go forward. It was one of the Summer Zervos when she was a contestant on The Apprentice, and she said that he kissed her and he was groping her against her will. There's 19 claims out there about this stuff, and he's been able to dodge it so far, but it will catch up with him. It will catch up with him, and
the proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.